My name is Alyssa. I've been married to my husband, Smith, for 3 years. I work as an insurance sales agent. Although I have flexible hours, I work on commission. So sometimes I get home later than Smith during busy periods. Smith has always been there for me, running his small business. We had a pretty good arrangement. I didn't have much time for housework, and Smith didn't mind doing it. But the issue has always been with my sister-in-law. My in-laws are really great people who have never mistreated me. However, sister-in-law is super attached to Smith. From the beginning of our relationship, she's been causing me problems. Despite multiple warnings from my in-laws, Smith has always taken her side. We argue about it now and then, but since we only see sister-in-law a few times a year, I didn't make a big deal about it. However, that doesn't mean I don't hold some resentment towards her. For example, I like a particular brand. While I don't splurge on it, I do buy things I want from my own savings or by working extra hard. She once accused me of getting those items from Smith and even stole from me. This happened when we went to my in-laws' house for a Christmas visit. When we walked into the living room, sister-in-law was already a few drinks in. "Ah, Smith, you're back."
Yeah, you're already drinking?
"It's Christmas, come join me."
Oh, alright then.
As Smith was about to sit, I said, "We haven't even greeted everyone yet, and we're not staying the night, you know. If you start drinking now, we won't be able to drive home." She scoffed. "Geez, what a strict wife. It's fine, Smith can just stay here. Why do you need to go back together?" I retorted, "So that's what comes to your mind before even saying Merry Christmas?" She then annoyingly leaned on Smith and whined, "Smith, Alyssa is bullying me." I was so disgusted by Smith's failure to push sister-in-law away that I headed to the kitchen. "Mother-in-law, Merry Christmas." It seems that mother-in-law was so wrapped up in preparing a full-course Christmas meal and party that she didn't hear our exchange. "Oh, you're here! Sorry, I didn't notice. Merry Christmas." "Is Smith not here?" "Smith is in the living room with sister-in-law." "Oh, Smith didn't even greet me." "I apologize." "No worries, it's not your fault, mother-in-law." As she said that, mother-in-law headed towards the living room. I followed her and found Smith evidently unable to refuse an offer to drink with sister-in-law. Mother-in-law saw this and said, "Smith, what are you doing here without even saying hello?"
Well, Nora was feeling lonely, so we decided to have a drink together.
"You should have greeted us first. I was wondering why only Alyssa came to greet us."
I couldn't turn down the drink.
Smith mumbled something, looking down, but I ignored him and took my seat. Just then, as I put my purse on the chair, sister-in-law perked up and started talking. "Wow, is that a new purse? Nice." I had a bad feeling and promptly placed the purse back on my lap. Sister-in-law looked visibly annoyed and said, "I can't afford one. Smith, I want one too."
Well, I didn't buy it.
"Then give me Alyssa's." "What? How dare you say that? You don't have to give it to her. It's expensive, right?" Who would hand over an item worth at least a few $1,000s, especially when it's practically brand new? I gave sister-in-law a dry laugh. "If you want one, go buy it yourself. You live at home, so if you work decently, you can afford it." True, sister-in-law lives at home but only works part-time about 3 days a week. She probably can't even afford the cheapest purse I own. This new purse was a favorite of mine. reserved with a deposit as soon as I heard from the shop clerk that it was coming in. There's no way I would easily give that up, especially not to sister-in-law. Then Smith started saying something outrageous.
Hey, give that to Nora.
What?
You have plenty. It won't hurt to give away just one.
Do you even know how much it costs?
If you have so many, what's the problem?
No way! I even paid a deposit to get this. Stingy! So stingy. Could you please not talk like a child? Are you even an adult? I just started using this brand new bag, so I can't give it away. I have no intention of giving away any of my other bags either. Stingy! With that, sister-in-law stormed off to her room. Smith also stood up, following her.
You went too far, and since you're not giving it, you should apologize.
I won't see my sister-in-law after Christmas, so it doesn't matter. I thought, but I was wrong. A few days after Christmas, as I was preparing to go to a hotel lunch with my friends, I opened my closet to grab a purse, but it was missing from the bag where I'd stored it. Frustrated, I went straight to Smith's place. Smith seemed upset to see me walk in, but began to look anxious when he noticed I was holding the empty bag.
What? I don't know anything about it. Maybe you left it at your parents' house?
I haven't even said anything yet. Don't you know? You gave it to your sister, didn't you?
I told you, I don't know. Maybe you left it somewhere, like at your parents' house.
Fine, I'll search your parents' house then. I'll also call them. If I don't find it, I'm reporting it to the police. It's an expensive bag. If someone broke in, that's a big deal. Smith turned pale at the mention of the police, but quickly retorted,
Even if the same purse is there, maybe Nora bought it herself?
I took a card out of the shopping bag and showed it to Smith. It's a limited edition with a serial number. There's no way it's the same.
I didn't know that.
My sudden visit surprised them, but they let me into my sister-in-law's room when I explained the situation. My purse was easily found in the messy room, but it was in terrible condition. The bag had remnants of food and drink stains, and it seemed beyond repair. Even my mother-in-law was at a loss for words. Suddenly, my sister-in-law, perhaps realizing someone was in her room, barged in shouting, "What are you doing? I told you not to come into my house." "Just give me back my purse." "Actually, you can keep it. Just give me the money back." "What are you talking about? I bought it." Probably coordinated with Smith. When sister-in-law said that, she had a smug look on her face and seemed quite pleased with herself. So I told her the same thing I had told Smith. "I've already explained this to Smith, so you should pay me back." "But Smith gave it to me. It's mine, and it was a gift, so it doesn't matter." Here was my sister-in-law acting like a child, even in her 30s. It was more pathetic than annoying at this point. My head was starting to hurt, but wasting a few $1,000s was out of the question. "Alright, I'll file a police report. It's theft, right?" Mother-in-law was the one who reacted. "Please, no police. She's still my daughter. I'll cover it and Nora can pay me back from her salary. Please." Mother-in-law looked at me with tearful eyes. It tugged at my heartstrings, but I couldn't let it go. How about sister-in-law pays from her salary instead? If there's even one late payment, I'll file that police report. "What? Why should I pay?" "Be quiet. I won't let her go out, so I'll manage her bank account that her salary goes into until everything is paid back." "This doesn't make sense." I left mother-in-law to handle the situation and went home, still pondering how to deal with Smith. Then a plan came to mind. I'll probably end up divorcing him, but it doesn't matter anymore. The day of reckoning was approaching. Months later, the day had come. We had gone to my in-laws' house for some reason. Today was the day our new home would be finished. We had been invited by my in-laws to celebrate, and my bag was packed with divorce papers. The atmosphere was pleasant at first during the dinner. I might not even have to hand these divorce papers over, I thought. But Smith disappointed me as usual. "Hey, I wanted a house too! Give it to me!" Just as I suspected. My in-laws' eyes bulged out at the ridiculous request. Father-in-law choked on his tea, and mother-in-law was speechless. And then I waited for Smith's response. His answer was, "I'll give it to Nora. She won't be able to buy a home anyway. We can just build another one. If you oppose, we're getting a divorce." Too bad. I wish it was just drunk talk, but he looked serious. I hated the face he made, smiling while leaning on sister-in-law. Sighing, I said, "Fine, let's divorce. You can have the house." "What?" "Yes." "Yay, I got my dream home." Sister-in-law was jubilant, but I didn't care. You get your dream life with sister-in-law in our home, Smith. Yay, Smith! The contrast couldn't have been starker. A jubilant sister-in-law, a frozen Smith, and me. I handed over the pre-filled divorce papers with a smile. Would have reconsidered if you'd objected. Good luck. Smith seemed to realize what I meant and seemed deeply apologetic, but I had already left the table and didn't look back. In hindsight, maybe I should have watched his reaction. A few days later, we discussed asset division through lawyers. My in-laws must have talked some sense into him, as he agreed rather easily. Months have passed. I was living alone in an apartment I bought before marriage, peacefully taking care of my cat. Then, sister-in-law shows up. When I opened the door, there she was, deeply apologetic. "I'm sorry, help me." "Who are you?" "Don't talk like that, we were family once." "I don't recognize people like you as family. You're the one who said that, right? Besides, we're divorced, so we're literally strangers now." "Please, I can't make it on my own." Upon a closer look, my sister-in-law was in rags. No wonder, Smith's earnings were less than the average temp jobs in the area. I said I'd leave the house, but I never said anything about continuing to pay the mortgage. The mortgage built around my income would be too much for Smith to handle. I bet the loan alone would swallow up his paycheck. Originally, the home was built so I could live there with Smith, but now I don't care anymore. "I never thought Smith would earn so little." Neither did I. Smith is what you'd call a freelance writer. If he writes, he makes money. If he doesn't, well, no income. Smith hates working. He gets sick if he has to do regular work outside, so a regular job is out of the question for him. He's tried it before but quit after a few months. So he was content doing housework while I was the main breadwinner. I provided almost all of our living expenses, and even the down payment on the house came from my savings. I found out that Smith boasted how he funded our lifestyle and splurged on luxury items without contributing to living expenses. And when we got divorced, I learned he had even taken on debt. Wanna guess what the debt was for? Presents for sister-in-law. I knew something was off when I saw high-end clothes and accessories scattered in sister-in-law's room, items she couldn't afford on a part-time job. My suspicions led me to discover thousands of dollars in debt on Smith's credit card. Sure, he could pay it off if he worked, but let's be real. Someone accustomed to a laid-back lifestyle isn't going to suddenly work hard. Why not sell the house then? "We've been cut off by Mom and Dad. They've sold their house and moved away. If we sell, we have nowhere to go. That caught me off guard. While my in-laws had always been soft on my harassing sister-in-law, I thought they would never actually abandon her. But it seems they'd finally reached their breaking point this time. No surprise there, with Smith falsifying his income and stealing the house from me, and sister-in-law sticking to him like glue. And then there's the home loan in tens of thousands of dollars. Even loving parents have their breaking point. It's what you chose, right? A home with just you and Smith. But Smith told me to sell my gifts, to work because we can't sell the house. That's on you. It's painful to see a 32-year-old crying at the doorstep. Actually, Smith is 10 years older than me. And believe it or not, sister-in-law is 8 years older than me. It's just pathetic that no one had set them straight before. But that's a separate issue. Why should I help people who've mistreated me all this time? I'll be going freelance a month after the divorce. I have my professional connections from my diplomat days, so I'll be just fine. But that's for my future, not for the downtrodden sister-in-law standing in front of me now. Please, can you at least take over half the mortgage? I couldn't help but burst out laughing, which enraged sister-in-law, her face turning beet red. What the heck? I'm begging you. Let me make this clear. No, I won't pay the mortgage. Why should I pay for a house I no longer live in? But you're the sister-in-law. So, I'm no longer your sister-in-law, got it? If you keep this up, I'm calling the cops. Do you want a criminal record too? My sister-in-law was startled by the mention of the police and scampered away. It's likely that Smith and she will have to fend for themselves from here on out. They're both adults. They should get what they want with their own efforts.
Kevin looked worried as he said,
Ashley, what's wrong? We need to leave soon, or we'll miss our flight.
I replied with a hint of apology. I'm sorry. Scott has been feeling under the weather since yesterday, and when I checked his temperature a while ago, it was a shocking 100.4 degrees Fahrenheit. Under these circumstances, I just can't bear to leave him alone. Kevin, though surprised, showed understanding.
Is that so? Then, there's no helping it. We'll have to cancel both our tickets on the day. We'll incur the full cancellation fee, but it's unavoidable. Could you handle the cancellation process? We'll proceed with our trip as planned, so you two take it easy at home.
With that, Kevin left the house with a smile, looking excited. The moment Kevin drove away, I immediately added his phone number to the reject list and blocked him on mail. Then, with a slight smile, I gently spoke to Scott, who was still soundly asleep. Scott, it's time to wake up. Today's an important day since we're moving to a new house. My name is Ashley, a 36-year-old housewife, married for 10 years. My husband, Kevin, is 39 years old and works as an ordinary office worker. Our only son, Scott, is 9 years old and in the 4th grade of elementary school. We are a very ordinary yet happy family of 3. Our relationship began with a workplace romance, with me as Kevin's senior and trainer. Kevin took a particular liking to me, leading to a marriage after 3 years of dating. Kevin was much younger and more handsome at the beginning of our marriage, with an inverted triangle physique, which made him the envy of female colleagues. However, within 3 months of our marriage, Kevin's affair came to light. When we got married and started our new life, I experienced a department change at work and ended up in the Human Resources department. During this change, Kevin was appointed again to mentor a newly joined female employee at the company, and unfortunately, it seems he took advantage of his position to engage in an inappropriate relationship. Learning this truth, I was furious and quickly brought up divorce, But a few days after making that proposal, an unexpected development occurred, and my pregnancy was revealed. Facing the fact of my pregnancy, the immediate divorce was put on hold, and the female employee involved in the affair with Kevin left her job quite swiftly. I'm thinking of this as the last chance. I can't forgive another mistake. With the future child in mind, and reconsidering the bonds of family, I resolved to endure once more. Although I originally planned to return to work after giving birth, Kevin's earnest wish led me to ultimately quit my job and dedicate myself to the family. Later, we named our son Scott, and he grew up healthily. Our son's healthy growth brought us great joy, but we also faced several challenges in our life. One of them was the presence of my mother-in-law. My in-laws lived very close geographically, which resulted in them visiting our home almost daily. While it would be appreciated if they helped take care of the child, in reality, they only doted on him, leaving all the actual caregiving tasks like changing diapers and soothing cries to me. And while I was busy with household chores, my mother-in-law closely observed my housekeeping skills and repeatedly made small criticisms.
Ashley, are you cleaning thoroughly? I see dust accumulating here and there. Ashley, the house smells a bit. You need to regularly take out the dirty diapers to maintain cleanliness. Ashley, could you make some tea? And don't forget the snacks. Just avoid crackers, they're too hard. Ashley, I've pre-ordered for lunch. Please take care of the payment. Ashley, it's already evening. Leaving the laundry outside like that is questionable.
The presence of a mother-in-law who stays from morning till evening without offering any help with household chores or childcare is honestly a huge burden. It's like having an additional baby at home, and dealing with her is nothing but a nuisance. Emma, what's the reason for your daily visits? You come over every single day.
She must adore Scott too much. It's a blessing that she's here to help with the chores.
If that were true, I'd be full of gratitude.
What do you mean?
The truth is, she hasn't helped with anything. In fact, the mother-in-law hasn't been any help with the household or childcare. However, to Kevin, she's said,
I think I'm helping.
But when trying to discuss this with Kevin, all I get is,
I'm tired right now, let's talk about this later.
Since these grievances started, Kevin's return home has become even later. Despite not having much overtime before, it increased from about 3 days a week to eventually 5, and he started spending weekends out on golf or entertaining, leaving the house empty. I became overwhelmed with taking care of Scott and dealing with the increasing visits from the mother-in-law, while Kevin often came home late at night, barely touched his dinner, took a shower, and went straight to bed. At first, I was understanding of Kevin's actions. He must be tired. I thought with empathy. 9 years have swiftly passed since then. Kevin is still extremely busy, and I'm constantly burdened with household chores and the demands of her mother-in-law. I feels Kevin prioritizing work over family, drifting away from his role at home, and finds my love for him gradually fading. The thought of divorce crossed my mind countless times, but the conflict of making such a decision for the sake of their son Scott's future was too complex. Then, a shocking event occurred. The father I dearly loved passed away. This news plunged me into deep sorrow and a bottomless sadness. The memory of his constant love and affection as his only daughter added to my anguish. Despite managing his chronic heart condition regularly, he suddenly had an attack while at work, was rushed to the hospital, but passed away just 2 hours after being taken by ambulance. Upon learning this fact, I cried until I had no tears left. Many relatives and acquaintances attended my father's funeral, but from Kevin's side, only my father-in-law showed up. After the funeral, and 5 days later, I returned home and then went back to my parents' house upon hearing from my mother that there was a matter regarding the inheritance to discuss. Kevin, who normally wouldn't take the initiative, offered to come with me this time. Wondering what made him decide to do so, we arrived at my parents' house to find the lawyer already waiting. In my family, being an only child, the heirs to the estate were just my mother and me.
I am here to disclose the contents of the will entrusted by the deceased. The will bequeaths the family home to his beloved wife, Amelia, and the total savings of $2 million are to be equally divided between Amelia and Ashley.
$2 million. Is that really true?
Your father once won a large sum in the lottery. That prize money is still remaining. I have enough with this house and the life insurance your father took out, which will ultimately go to Ashley as well. Therefore, I believe all these savings should go to Ashley.
Hearing this, I was enveloped in deep surprise, but my astonishment was matched, if not surpassed, by Kevin's reaction. It's understandable for him to be astounded by his wife suddenly receiving such a large amount of money. On the drive home, I remained silent, my face devoid of emotion. Kevin continued to drive without uttering a word, a somewhat smug smile on his face. My silence was due to an anonymous email. The moment I got into the car, I received the email. The sender's address was unfamiliar, and opening the content-less email, I was momentarily lost for words. Attached were photos of two people holding hands while walking, exchanging kisses, and entering a hotel together. One of them was a face I knew all too well. Surprisingly, it was Kevin. The shock of this revelation alone was profound, but the presence of the other person in the photos brought an even greater surprise. It was revealed that the other woman was a former colleague of mine who joined the company at the same time, Lily. I knew Lily had been dating a male colleague, and they seemed so close that marriage seemed likely at some point. However, I had never imagined that she would be in an affair with my husband, Kevin.
What's wrong? You haven't said anything for a while. It's unfortunate about your father, but having an inheritance is something to be thankful for. You got a notification for an email earlier, right? Why don't you reply to it?
It was just a promotional email. I've already deleted it. I tried to keep my composure, but my voice might have been shaking. The shaking in my voice wasn't due to the sadness of losing my father or the joy of receiving an inheritance, but rather anger and disappointment towards my husband who neglected our family and was engrossed in his work and another woman. With feelings of anger, the next day, I decided to hire a detective agency to investigate their relationship in detail. I visited a local detective agency I found on the internet and knocked on the door. Although it wasn't hard to imagine their affair was real, I decided to wait until I received a detailed report. One day, my mother-in-law said with a full smile, brimming with joy,
I'm really looking forward to our next trip to Italy. We have to thank Ashley.
"Is that so? Is there a trip planned?"
Yes, that's right. Oh. Hasn't Kevin told you yet? We're going to Italy. It's my first trip abroad.
I haven't heard anything about that. Afterwards, I decided to ask Kevin directly about the plan. Kevin revealed the plan with surprising calmness.
Actually, we've planned a family trip to Italy using the long weekend next month. We enjoyed our honeymoon in Italy right after we got married, but for my mother, this will be her first trip abroad. When I told her about it, it turned into an unexpected development, and the news spread among our relatives, ultimately turning into a large group of 23 people. It's like a school trip when we were students, and I think it's a kind of adventure that will be fun in its own way.
Wait a minute. I wasn't informed about such an elaborate plan beforehand. And what do you mean by all of us?
It's no problem. Fortunately, everyone was able to get time off simultaneously, and as for the kids' school, we can manage a 3-day absence.
Faced with this sudden travel plan, I couldn't hide my surprise and confusion. Especially the idea of planning a week-long overseas trip that required the kids to miss school was utterly unacceptable to me. What shocked me even more was that the cost of the trip for 23 people was expected to be fully covered by me. This was undoubtedly because they had their eyes on the inheritance I had received. All I could do was let out a deep sigh from the bottom of my heart. 2 weeks after hiring a detective to investigate the affair, I went to the detective office to receive the completed report. The results showed that the affair between my husband and Lily began around the time I quit my job and continued even after our son was born, and it was also discovered that my husband was involved with other women. Overwhelmed by sadness, anger, and disbelief, I found myself laughing at the sheer absurdity of the situation. I was so repulsed by the thought of sharing a bed or even the same air with my husband that I seriously considered an immediate divorce, but ultimately, I decided to endure it a little longer. Despite the unbearable daily pain, I was determined to exact divine retribution on Kevin as my revenge. On the night before departure, Kevin was packing his suitcase, filled with excitement. Likely, many relatives, including my mother-in-law, were also busy preparing for the trip. Both I and our son, Scott, were also packing, but our purpose was fundamentally different from Kevin's. Then came the morning of departure. Kevin left us behind and set off for the planned trip.
Ashley, what are you doing? We're running out of time, we need to catch the plane.
I'm sorry. Actually, Scott has been feeling unwell since last night, and this morning, his temperature was over 100.4 degrees Fahrenheit. I can't leave him alone at home in this condition.
That's tough. Then, we have no choice but to cancel for today. Unfortunately, we'll have to bear the full cost of the cancellation, but it can't be helped. Can you handle the cancellation? We'll go ahead as planned, so you two stay at home.
Saying that, Kevin left the house with a smug smile on his face. Right after ending the call, I quickly blocked Kevin's contacts and set my message to prevent any communication. With a slight smile, I gently spoke to Scott, who was still deep in sleep. Scott, it's time to wake up. Today is the day we move to our new home. As I had planned, Kevin was left bewildered at the airport departure counter.
What's going on here? Everyone is already gathered and waiting. Why are we the only ones who can't join this trip?
He couldn't hide his panic and confusion.
Sir, we have your reservation here, but the payment required for the trip has not yet been received. It was scheduled to be paid in cash today, but unfortunately, without the payment, we will have to cancel your reservation.
What kind of nonsense is that?
Kevin tried to call me, and even attempted an email, but the call wouldn't go through, and the email bounced back with an error. Sensing something was wrong, my mother-in-law called me to find out what had happened.
Ashley, what's going on?
What's going on is that Scott and I have canceled our trip to Italy.
Never mind that, why haven't you paid for the trip yet?
Where am I supposed to find such a large amount of money?
From the inheritance you received, of course.
I'm sorry for the late notice, but Kevin and I officially divorced yesterday. I can't afford to spend such a large amount of money for my now ex-husband.
This is no time for such foolishness. Pay that bill right now. Ashley, are you listening? Ashley? Ash.
I gently ended the call and immediately added Kevin's entire family, starting with my mother-in-law, to my phone's block list. Faced with the reality that no matter how much they tried, they couldn't go on the trip, Kevin would have to return home, shaking with anger and subjected to the cold stares of his relatives. However, when he returned home, Scott and I were no longer there. Only a letter left on the dining table and a few evidence photos quietly waited for him. I made my final decision regarding Kevin and left a decisive letter. The divorce proceedings are complete. Legally, we are now strangers to each other. Soon, you will receive a formal notification through the lawyer, so please don't forget to make payments for alimony and child support. Along with this calm yet firm message, I included several photos showing his infidelity with Lily and left the letter on the dining table. It's a pity I won't be able to see his reaction to this letter firsthand, but any regret he may have upon returning home is too late. The path he faces now is the natural consequence of the choices he made. When his infidelity was discovered early in our marriage, I had him fill out a divorce form. If this happens again, I will never forgive you. I clearly warned him. I had kept that divorce form for years and finally, yesterday, I signed it and submitted it to the city hall. With this act, Kevin and I have officially become strangers in both name and reality. When Kevin returned home and the lawyer visited, Kevin was reportedly left standing alone in despair. No one answered, and the front door was left unlocked. The lawyer notified him of obligations related to property division, alimony, child support payments, a restraining order, and the possibility of wage garnishment if payments are delayed. Faced with all these facts, Kevin was completely dumbfounded. His astonishment stemmed from not only having to fulfill his financial obligations to me, but also facing the reality of paying cancellation fees to the travel agency. The total cost for the trip to Italy for 23 people, including round-trip business class flights, luxury hotel stays, and optional tours, amounted to about $300,000. The relatives, who had been looking forward to the trip, learned of the cancellation only upon arriving at the airport and expressed strong condemnation towards Kevin and my mother-in-law. They had gone to the trouble of adjusting work and school schedules, even preparing to take the children out of school, so this sudden change was a major shock to them. The note detailing the payment was handed to me, but the reservation was made under my mother-in-law's name, so she was directly billed for the cancellation fee despite my being saddled with the actual payment responsibility. I never received a single invoice personally. To resolve this mess, my in-laws put their house on the market and poured all their savings into settling the cancellation fee. This series of events led to heightened criticism from relatives, and I heard my mother-in-law became significantly more withdrawn, leading a quieter life than ever before. On the other hand, Kevin is financially strained by the alimony and child support for me, as well as the compensation to Lily's husband, having to give up the luxury apartment we lived in and now resides in an old, small apartment, significantly lowering his standard of living. Although his salary hasn't been garnished yet, the scandal has caused ripples at his workplace, leaving him almost completely isolated. Lily, overwhelmed by the pressure at work, chose to resign, but I am making sure the lawsuit for her compensation is proceeding. I intend to seek proper redress for all the pain they have caused me. The sender of the anonymous email that initiated everything is still not definitively identified. However, the information contained in the email address allows for some speculation. The sequence of numbers following the free email address, 0318, is definitely Lily's birth date, and the other, 1123, is likely the sender's own birth date. There is only one person among my acquaintances whose birthday matches this date, and that is Luke. He is a male colleague who joined the company the same year as us and had a history of dating Lily. Although we never had deep conversations, I am genuinely grateful for his actions. That unexpected email gave me the courage to accept the end with Kevin and step into a new life. After the divorce from Kevin was finalized, Scott and I have been living peacefully in our newly chosen apartment. Moreover, my mother will soon join us to start living together, moving from her house to here. Scott. I'm truly sorry. I couldn't forgive your father, and that might have made you feel lonely too. I apologize from the bottom of my heart.
It's okay, Mom. You've done nothing wrong. The one who is really at fault is Dad. I can never forgive him for betraying you and me. I don't feel lonely at all, and from now on, I'll make sure to protect you, so don't worry.
Scott's strong and heartwarming words gave me great courage and assurance. Knowing how splendidly and strongly Scott has grown, and thinking about the new life that will soon start with my mother joining us, makes me feel that my life ahead is still full of promise. Our family's new beginning is just the prologue to the new chapter that lies ahead.